Now we'll have Rajeev Jayadevan. He'll talk to us on one of the most important topic of the season, of this month, of this year or last year, COVID vaccine. Rajeev,
Yes, sir.
yeah, take it on from here, please.
Two of my greatest teachers are sitting in front of me, Dr. P. Zachariah and Dr. John Idikula. And Dr. P. Zachariah is very special to me because, I spent 3 days at his house before being selected into CMC Vellore. And I was fortunate to sit through his classes. And among all the classes in CMC Vellore, his classes I remember the most. So obviously, how good a teacher he is. I don't have to say that. And Dr. John Idikula is a person who introduced me into clinical epidemiology and critical thinking. So I'm eternally grateful to both these eminent professors. And thank you for the invite. Since time is short, I'll go straight to the topic. Since we are talking about vaccines, I will say, because this is not a time to talk about the RNA virus and all. So I'll go straight to some of the most interesting things and the more critical things that I can present in the next 10 minutes. Overthinking is the problem I see about vaccines. People are flooded with information, and information overload is a topic I've written about before. Information overload is when you get too much of information, your decision-making quality actually comes down. I'll take you back to a study in Israel when there was a judge who they studied how his decisions were. As he sat through the day, his only job was to grant bail or parole to prisoners. So they found that the judge was more likely to give bail to the prisoners in the mornings, and he denied bail in the afternoons. So they found that as the judge sat through the day, his mind was clouded with information, and he eventually lost his decision-making capacity and chose a safe route out, that is deny bail. This is a classic example of information overload. What I see about vaccines is there is so much information being dished out in WhatsApp, Facebook, and other media that people are so confused as to what to do. And even remarkably intelligent people that I know have come up with absolutely silly decisions about vaccines. So that is the biggest message I have, what I've gathered in all my studies. We have two options in India now, that is Covaxin and Covishield at this point. And the purpose of vaccines, again, I'll always like to go back to the big picture. Why did COVID-19 cause such a problem around the world was largely because the human race was not familiar with this virus. We had no prior exposure to this virus, and exposure to its cousins meant nothing. As according to even the latest paper that came out yesterday, they found that exposure to common cold coronaviruses provides no immunity against this new virus because it's a remarkably different virus. So this is the reason why many people succumb to it. And the reason for succumbing is not so much the virulence of the virus, but it is because our immune response was out of proportion and also discoordinated. It was a dysregulated, out of sync immune response that happened. And as you know, the virus has the ability to disable our alarm signals. Specifically, this particular virus enters our cell, and the first thing it does is it turns off the interferon switch. So interferons, as you know, is the alarm bell of the cell. Once the alarm bell is turned off, the virus has a free run. So there is tremendous amount of initial infection, and the cell is not able to send out a distress signal to the neighboring cells. So this is really the problem. And then by the time our adaptive immunity is alerted, the amount of infection is so much that the adaptive immunity quantum that attacks this virus is so much it destroys the organs. So that is what is called a dysregulated immune response. What vaccines do is just in plain English, it provides an introduction to the virus. It gives the immune system an ID. Look, this is what this virus looks like. Please do the needful. That is essentially all that vaccines do. But people go into so much of detail about protein subunit vaccine and mRNA and PEG molecules and or the rest of it. So my message from all my reading and networking with the world's top experts through various media is all the leading vaccines are good. They all are excellent at reducing severe disease. Our aim with the vaccines is not to stop infection. Our aim with vaccines is to stop this virus from killing us or stop this virus from causing severe disease that causes respiratory failure and other organ failure. So if the spectrum of this virus, like a car's speedometer from 0 to 140, so we have at 0, we have 0 symptoms, and at 140, we have death. And in between, before death, there is respiratory failure and destroyed lungs. Before that, there is pneumonia, and then before that, there is respiratory infection, and then before that, there's a common cold, and the vast 40% is asymptomatic. They have absolutely no symptoms. Now, that is what makes this virus unique. And what vaccine does, if you look at the speedometer of the car, it erases the second half of the speedometer. So the virus can only touch you from 0 to 60. 0, you have no symptoms, and then you got a little bit of cough, maybe a little bit of pneumonia, nothing beyond that. And that primarily is the purpose of the vaccine. And according to all the available information to date, all of these vaccines, mainstream vaccines, are capable of doing that. The numbers we see, the 90%, the 92%, almost like a CBSE exam score, is completely useless. It's got no value in terms of total protection. What those numbers mean is simply the number of self-reported symptoms of vaccine recipients, and that's highly prone to error from what Dr. Idikula has taught us. See, statistics is such a tool that you can, if you torture the data long enough, it will confess to anything you want. So the people who make these products can make the data in any form they want. But if there is one thing that is certain, all of these vaccines, they work. So I would not choose between one vaccine or the other. So that is the main message I have. And the paper that came out 2 days ago in Cell, I tweeted about that in our group. And also I sent it to some of my colleagues in Vellore. They followed 12 people who were ill from COVID-19 in Singapore. Some of them died, and they found, this is a longitudinal study, it's very difficult to do. They tracked how these people's immune responses occurred without knowing the ending. And they found that those people who had adequate T cell response in the beginning, excuse me, they did not die. And the ones whose T cell response was delayed, just like I described in the beginning of my talk, they are the ones who did badly. So we hear so much about antibodies, partly because antibodies is a sales pitch for vaccines. I can't use the word sales pitch in an outside talk, but I can talk about it here. It's a sales pitch for vaccines. But what we want is T cells. Unfortunately, in research, it's difficult to measure T cells. But all these vaccines, including Covaxin, produces extraordinary amount of T cell response of the right kind. There are two responses, T helper 1 and T helper 2. Covaxin and Covishield, they both produce the correct type of T cell response, with T helper 1 type, which is the safe type of T cell response. And that is all that we need. So I would encourage everyone to get vaccinated. I've received my vaccine, and that is all I have to say about vaccines in this short talk. Now I'm stopping now. We've got a minute and a half for a quick question.
What about the pediatric age group and younger adults?
Yeah, the pediatric age group, the issue here is, children do not die from COVID-19. Their death rate at age 10 is 1 in 50,000, which is about your risk of death if, for example, if you undergo a minor surgery, like if you undergo a lymph node biopsy, your chance of dying is something like that. So I'm just trying to put things in perspective. I'm not saying 50,000 is a small number. Second, the role of children is, in fact, they're transmitters. That is their role in the pandemic. They move virus from one family to the other, and that's their role, and vaccines do nothing to stop that. There is some preliminary evidence that vaccines may decrease nasal shedding, but decreasing nasal shedding does not take away the ability to transmit. Next question. If there's one more question, I'll take it.
Hello, Rajeev.
Yes,
Philip. Yeah, hi.
Yeah.
would you suggest that the government has insisted at 28 days we take the second dose, and with this suggestion that perhaps you get a better immunity at 12 weeks, should we go ahead with the 28-day, or do you think it's wise to wait?
I would wait for 3 months. That gives you a better antibody levels, and better antibody levels, as I said earlier, Philip, as you know very well, you are the best outgoing and you're the gold medalist in every subject I know of, and you're the most brilliant junior that I know of, and Mabel too. And I'll tell you, as far as antibody levels go, they only stop the virus from getting into your body. But what we really want is not to stop the virus infection. What we really want is our T cells. So going by current data, I would wait, personally, I would wait for 3 months because I got the Covishield vaccine, which is given out to healthcare workers. So I would wait for 3 months. That gives the best response. And the MHRA of the UK, in fact, brought out that paper, brought out their exploratory analysis back in January, 1st of January, I think. I tweeted a summary. And Twitter is a great medium. I recommend you to use it. My handle is Rajeev Jayadevan. Just Google my name, you'll go straight to my Twitter. And you can follow the work of people you prefer. And I've basically summarized thousands of scientific papers into three sentences each over the past year or so. So you're welcome to follow that. I think the time is up. Dr. John?
Okay. Thank you very much, Rajeev, for an excellent talk. You made a difficult problem look so simple. And thanks for answering the questions. Even more than that, I'd like to thank you especially for the amount of information that you're gathering and sharing with us in the alumni group, and for all the work you're doing for the state. And thank you very much indeed. We are really proud of you.
Thank you, sir. Can I request a comment from Dr. P. Zachariah?
I'm glad that you avoided information overload. That was very practical. I entirely agree with you. There's no reason at all why we should avoid the vaccine. All vaccines have been shown to be safe. So we don't have nothing to worry. Whatever good it will do, let us avail of it.
Thank you, sir.